Good evening. Welcome to the She Invest session by StashAway. Tonight, we're going to talk about two very exciting topics, crypto and NFTs. So my name is Stephanie, and I am the Deputy CIO and Head of StashAway Hong Kong for StashAway. I will be very honored to be joined by two very experienced guests in the crypto space. The first one is Vivien Khoo. Vivien is actually also a senior advisor to StashAway. And Vivien will also do a very detailed introduction of herself in her presentation. The second guest that we have for tonight is Charles. Charles Dulce is the current Asia Managing Director for Consensus. For those of you who are familiar in crypto, a Consensus is a name that you wouldn't have missed. For those who are not as, familiar, Consensus is called the Ethereum company. They basically were one of the founders of Ethereum and also the owner of MetaMask, which is a very popular wallet. So before we start, maybe I'll talk a little bit about the program, She Invest by StashAway, and a bit about why we're doing this. So basically, She Invest is the latest kind of initiative from StashAway, but StashAway has always been very committed to financial education, and also one of the top priorities for us is to help our investors to build wealth over the long term through investing for our customers and managing the investments, but also through better education. So She Invest is an educational series focused on bridging the gender gap in investment. And actually some fun facts to share in terms of the gender investment gap compared to men, women tend to actually live longer, but also would prefer to defer their financial planning to their partners. At the same time, women also is more has more tendency to take time off work to look after the families. All this means that financial planning is actually even more important for female than male. And however, also the knowledge, the access to knowledge is there is also a gap in how female and male get access to knowledge as well. Therefore, StashAway is proudly presenting the She Invest series to try to bridge that knowledge gap. And we think that with more knowledge, women can be empowered and become more confident to actually drive investment decisions and also to make better investments over the long term. And I've actually got one interesting question. One question from TQ. I'm curious about why women have less access to financial knowledge than men. Could you please comment? I think it's actually a point worth kind of explaining a little bit. I guess when I say less access to financial knowledge, it's kind of the network of what we talk about as women, because I think for example, even in my personal circles, when we have like female to female talks, usually we don't talk that much about financial situations or investments. Whereas in some of the, more male dominated discussions, we talk more about like investments, either it's picking stocks or kind of which investment would make more money. So basically, it's really about being kind of open about personal financial situations, and then also having a network of supportive women to discuss about these various issues. Let me see if there are other questions coming in. Yes. So one comment from one of our our audience. I feel like men are more comfortable talking about money compared to women. Yes, I definitely would agree with that. And as a female myself, it actually sometimes I feel like it's not too comfortable. It feels a bit almost, guilty to talk about money, whereas the men would just ask for what is your, for example, what are your top investment ideas right up front. And yeah, I guess this is this is a barrier like that, I guess females tend to be a bit more reserved or cautious when it comes to kind of talking about or making recommendations or talk about money stuff. And one comment, women are more risk averse and investment sounds risky. Yeah, I guess it's investment can be quite risky. And there's also, I guess, I would say investment has to be risky because I mean, we have a whole kind of, I guess, academy on this about thinking of risk and return. And I guess we have to understand that the reason why we're getting financial return is because we're taking on certain risk. Say, for example, there is something called the risk-free rate, which is the deposits, like the interest rate that we get from deposits, because essentially you're not taking any risk. Therefore, the return is actually very low. And as your risk appetite goes up here, I mean, like kind of taking on different types of risk. For example, if you buy bonds, you're taking on risk of the movement of interest rates. When you buy equities, for example, you're taking on risk of the economic cycle and economic growth. Or when you pick certain companies, you're taking on even more risk because you're taking on the company's financial risk. So when we make investments, it's inherently risky. So we have to, the most important thing to do is number one, to understand what kind of risk we're taking. And then number two, to see if that is the risk that you are prepared or willing to kind of take on. And this is why, I mean, StashAway, we've done a lot of work trying to, in our app, help people to actually evaluate the risk, the true level of risk, and also to help people to select the right investment that would be kind of compatible with your level of risk. Question, would you say crypto is short-term investment, also is volatile and depend on one's risk appetite? So, I mean, you can treat anything as long-term and short-term investment. I would say, I mean, crypto can be a long-term investment as well. If you have kind of the long-term thesis that, for example, it will become let's say, I mean, let's not just talk about Bitcoin because Bitcoin is one of crypto. But for example, if we look at Ethereum or other smart contracts, I mean, they have actually functionalities. They're like they're pretty much like computers on the blockchain. So these actually have functionalities. So if you believe that these functionalities are useful for disrupting industries, for example, a lot of the Ethereum-based or smart contract-based technologies are being used in finance. So that's changing the way, for example, payments are being done, or banking is being done, or even wealth management is being changed by that. I mean, those have actually long-term values. And if there is a long-term value, I mean, you can invest in it over the long term. And I think the difficulty of investing in crypto is because if you look at crypto as an asset class, let's say, I mean, the biggest ones like Bitcoin, Ethereum, they're much, much more volatile than traditional asset classes that we're used to. For example, just statistically, they are 3 times more volatile than the stock market. So if you find like the stock market already like too volatile for your risk appetite, then I mean, crypto is like turbocharge that. So again, back to risk, you need to understand kind of where your risk appetites are and size your investments appropriately. Like if you're not that kind of risk, I guess, chasing, or you don't have a high risk appetite, then maybe allocate small of your net worth to it. If you are more risk, if you can take on more risk, then more. So that's kind of the way I would think about crypto investments. Of course, as with anything else, like before you invest, do your homework. And that's why, I mean, we're here to talk about crypto and NFTs. Yeah, comment from Mel, personal finance is such a sensitive topic in society. We should talk more about it to normalize this topic for all. Completely agree with this. And yeah, I think, yeah, we need to socialize the concept that, I mean, making investment it's a way for us to actually achieve our financial goals. So for example, I mean, we work, we earn, we make salary, and then we also spend. So every month, like hopefully we have something saved to like help us to achieve our goals in the future. And I mean, the way for us to actually accumulate wealth is two different paths, right? One, you can save, like put it in the bank and generate interest. However, I mean, with today's like very low interest rate and actually inflation going higher and higher, money in the bank actually would get eroded by inflation faster than they can accumulate interest rates. So savings is actually not a very good way to help you to achieve your future goals. And I mean, we all have many different future goals, right? It can be retirement, it can be setting up an educational fund for your kids, or it could be I just wanted to save for a big purchase down the line. So the other way, if you can't, like if saving won't get you there, then investment is the only other choice. And that's why, I mean, we all need to kind of talk more about investment, and we need to think about how do we generate long-term wealth through investment. Yeah, would be great to have lady friends who can give advice and all with investment. Yes, hopefully, I mean, yeah, we're here with you. So hopefully like you would find this helpful. Question, yeah, a lot of women I know delegate their investment to men. This is from Claudia. And yet studies show that women who invest tend to have better performance than male investors. Yes, this is a survey done on fund managers. So for various reasons, female fund managers have tended to actually do better than the male counterparts. So something for us to be proud of. So without further ado, we'll have the presentation by Vivien Khoo, our senior advisor at StashAway, and also co-founder of Asia Crypto Alliance and SatoshiWomen.
SatoshiWomen, why don't I make a quick plug, just at the beginning. So we advocate for crypto literacy for women from all walks. So we provide education, access, and inspiration. And so with StashAway, as you know, actually this She Invest series has been dedicated to educate and provide actually a, can you guys hear me? Somebody's saying they're saying no sound.
I can hear you. Yep.
Okay, so I'll just keep going, sorry. So She Invests, great series provided by StashAway, also targeted at increasing financial literacy. So I see a lot of synergies between SatoshiWomen and StashAway in terms of what we try to do. And just a little bit more about myself. So currently I chair the Asia Crypto Alliance, which is an industry group. Prior to that, I spent some time at a crypto derivatives exchange. And before then, I was in Goldman Sachs in the compliance area. So that's just a bit about my background. And well, you're not here to hear about myself. So let us move on to the next slide to talk about why we're all here and the exciting stuff that actually, on why you want to know about digital assets. So, I mean, there are a few reasons why we all want to know about digital assets. So, all of you probably, even if you're not a crypto trader, would have heard all the headlines about, Bitcoin hitting all-time high in 2021. And also COVID, something that we don't particularly like, but that's really helped accelerate the growth of the retail crypto market by at least 5 years, at least reported by some. And about 37% of the people who trade crypto trade significantly more, again, reported by some statistics, because I guess we just have nothing to do at home. And a lot of people who have mobile phones, who've got computers, just like trading online. And if you've got, a son, daughter, niece, nephews, grandson, or brother, sister who are in the age range of 18 to 25, that makes up, close to 50% of the client base who's trading. So if you want to get into conversation with them, have something exciting to talk about, again, that's another angle why you should know a bit more about digital assets. And also, no matter where you're in the world, whether you're in more developing countries like Philippines, Latin America, India, or, far away like El Salvador, which is the only country now, or I think that number is increasing, the country that's adopting Bitcoin as a legal tender. So a lot of exciting things happening in different parts of the world. And of course, you've got bigger countries, more established, US, Hong Kong, Asia, who is also actually very focused on developing the crypto market. And then lastly, NFT sales actually surged to about 11 billion in the third quarter of 2021. So eight times more than the previous quarter. So just some highlights on, why we're all here actually to talk about this exciting topic. So let's move on. About women, participation of women. Why is women sticking out of space? And so me being a woman, obviously very excited to see this development. And this little header with all these ape, female ape, is actually a project called Desperate Ape Wives. So I'm not recommending in any way you should buy or invest in this project, but a lot of people actually usually go into projects because they felt that they can relate to the character, the cartoon, or the project team, and they believe in the project. So I think these are some reasons why people get involved. Blockchain technology, which underpins crypto and NFTs, is said to be making the market more fair, transparent, and also making the world more inclusive. So I don't know if you guys agree, but I certainly do some aspect of it. And then crypto also is moving very swiftly into mainstream, whether you're an investor, you're a company, your country trying to adopt them as an asset class or as a payment. Or as a hedge against some, uncertainty or hyperinflation. There's always an angle why crypto is relevant for you. And then NFT world is even more exciting with female participation. So again, I don't want to advertise on specific projects, but you have a lot more female-led projects. Like some of you, if you notice, what's on the news, we'll see projects like World of Women, Desperate Ape Wives, which I mentioned. These are some of the projects that are trying to bring visibility of women and more diversity in the NFT space. And of course, can't miss out the celebrities and the athletes. Celebrities, so you will see people like Paris Hilton, Gwyneth Paltrow, and others actually who are actually getting in, like buying specific projects and sort of being the face of them and promoting them. And lastly, interestingly, on the athlete front, there's a platform called Parity, which allow athletes to now be selling NFTs on. So thought that that's kind of interesting data points for those female actually coming into the space. So let's move on to the next page. So fundamentals. I won't really call this a master class because we don't really have time to go into deep dives, but I think these are just maybe some basic concepts and principles about, the journey of if you decide you want to be somehow involved in, digital, so we'll talk about later on what are digital assets, safety and security aspect, some of the coins, is crypto for you? And then also lastly, touch on NFTs and how that's kind of shaping the future. So let's move right on about what digital assets in. So all of us live in a digital world. Digital assets can vary from a photo on your smartphone, movies from Netflix, is stored in cloud. So most of us actually interact with digital assets hundreds, if not 1,000 times a day. If you've got young kids that you're dealing with, that's at the house, the chances they're constantly interacting with digital assets. And digital assets just electronic files of data. They can be owned, they can be transferred, they can be used as a currency to make transactions. They can be used to store art, videos, contract documents. So Bitcoin, for example, is one of the digital assets, asset-backed stablecoin, Tether, NFTs, and the whole gamut. And some of the other assets are, digital assets are functioning more like utility tokens. So, so actually, just to touch on, tokens, maybe very briefly about the two sort of broad category of tokens, because people always hear about fungible and non-fungible and what's kind of the key difference. So fungible really is something that can be transferred from one owner to the other, and then is usually used as payment. Whereas non-fungible is something that's unique. It has a unique ID that differentiate one token from the other. So NFTs is where this broad bucket comes in. So next slide. So custody, security, and safety. People always want to participate, but always are scared. So, before all of us actually decided we want to take part or invest or do something with crypto or digital assets. So what are some of the things that you need to know about? So I always, me having been in a risk management background for so long, I always talk about, okay, what's the worst case scenario? So just talk about, maybe three sort of factors of why people are worried about crypto. One is volatility. So I think if you think that penny stock and other things are volatile, crypto, particularly, even the biggest one like Bitcoin is hugely volatile. So if I talk about let's say 2019, when I got into the industry, it was about the 3,000-ish. And, last year, obviously it went up to all-time high to close to 70,000. Of course, that happened in a range of a couple of years, but this is a type of investment that actually from day to day, week to week, hour to hour, there's just huge volatility. So I think the first thing is you need to decide if this is for you. Do you need to sleep? Are you gonna, be able to sleep with that kind of volatility in your wallet? Is that something that actually you can tolerate? And then secondly, the unregulated nature. So now, things are quickly changing. And in the later part of the session, I would talk a bit more about what regulators actually think about regulations and regulating crypto. But I think people usually are worried about, because a lot of these crypto players, they're not regulated. So I think people worry about, who do I have to call? Is there like standards that they abide by? So that's usually a big concern. And then thirdly, really is about hacking, technology errors. So no matter how perfect your platform can be, you just can't help, because it's a bit like, you can't stop robbers robbing a bank. If people see that there's a lot of money involved, there's a lot of assets on the platform, that they're just organized attempts that people would do to try to hack it. So I think, again, we'll talk a bit about what you should do, to safeguard some of these risks. So let's move on to the next one. So not my key, not my coin. So I think that's self-explanatory. So people hear about these terms: private key, public key, hot and cold wallet. What exactly are they? So private key is some numbers that's mathematically generated. It's linked to your wallet address. So allows you to control your crypto, to spend it in the wallet. And the public key is just something that confirms a wallet address belongs to you. And then the other two, I think people need to understand the difference between the two. So hot wallets is something that's connected to the internet and stores your private key online. So you can think about it, if your keys or your assets is constantly online, people who can access the internet will be able to access, your assets. Whereas if you store in a cold wallet, which is that little thing, that gray thing actually on the top of the header, this is just one of them. So there are different ones that exist now in the market. So you can store it in one of those devices. So unless somebody take over your device or steal your password on that, there's just no way that they can still take your assets. So usually a lot of people think that that's a very safe way to store your assets in. But of course, I think there's a cost to it, because if you're an active trader, you need to move assets in and out. It's inconvenient because you have to do it every time. So let's move on to the next slide. So Bitcoin, altcoin, how many other coins? People usually know and would have heard about Bitcoin. Altcoins is basically everything else other than Bitcoin. So maybe we spend a minute talking about just Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, a lot of people think about is it digital gold? Where can I buy it? So, it's much easier now. I think you can do it, obviously, P2P. You can do it on regulated exchanges, bigger one like Coinbase, but Gemini, bigger platform like crypto.com. And you've got like credit cards, so Master, Visa, they're now all hooked up with crypto providers. So you can use credit cards, and of course, there is some people, and I don't personally know these people, but still use Bitcoin ATM machines. There are quite a lot of them lying around in laundry places, in different parts of town. But those usually, require taking cash, and there is quite a big markup on fees. So question mark on, do you really want to be carrying that much cash around? Personally, I won't, but I know people still do that. And then also there's, people ask about like price differences, about, how come there are different prices, or at least like difference in different exchanges. So that is a complicated question. So I'll maybe give some background, but not dwell into it, because it has a lot to do with the liquidity, the volume of different exchanges, the supply, and there's no established way to reference as such, Bitcoin prices. So a lot of it is still, merely based on trading and also moving, of money across exchanges. So I say, so that's why actually that there will be a difference in pricing, depending on which providers actually you go on. And then, some of these other, just more fun questions people usually ask: can I bring it to metaverse? Of course you can. Can I play it with Roblox? Probably not, because you probably can't buy things with Roblox. I think, your kids can probably tell you about that. Moving on to stablecoin. So what is stablecoin? Stablecoin is what, we had a session with the local regulators here, and, Hong Kong, for example, just pushed out a consultation on stablecoin, and people always think about stablecoin as something that's less sexy and exciting to talk about, or because, it's usually attached or backed by something. Well, some are not, but they're usually backed by fiat, or they're backed by something at the back. So it's a lot more stable. I think there are different ways where you can utilize stable coins by, earning more interest. And, again, I think we can do a whole other session on that. But I think this is an area, clearly, I think there will be regulation around because I think it will be used as a form of payment. It will probably be on some regulated system. So I think this out of, the different crypto is probably something that is less risky because of its stable nature. But again, you have to look at what's the underlying. So just moving on, altcoins. So this is, if you look at the sort of risk scale of the different type of crypto coins you can buy, altcoin basically is everything else other than Bitcoin. So Ethereum, obviously is the next one in terms of biggest market cap after Bitcoin, but you have, a lot of others. And I think usually the ones that make headlines lately are a lot of those, what you call meme coins. So this is a Doge coins. So these, if you think Bitcoin is volatile, this is probably, 100% more volatile because there's very little basis about how it goes up or down. And people probably heard about Squid coin too. It went up, X 100%, and then it went down again. So these are kind of coins that actually it will be very hard to do any type of in-depth analysis. So again, unless you have a very strong appetite to be doing a very sort of highly speculative kind of trading, these are usually like the type that you might want to stay away from, unless you're quite a well-versed actually crypto trader. Okay, moving on. So is crypto for my portfolio? I think investing in crypto now is a bit like investing in the internet stocks or world in the late 1990s. So there are different ways that you can get exposure. Obviously, you can directly invest into the coin itself, but of course, you've got like a lot of companies now actually that have shares that actually have sort of exposure in Bitcoin, and then ETF. There are different types of ETFs. So I think some of those actually that are more well-known. For example, there's one called ProShares. It was a game changer for investor when it launched in October last year because it was the first crypto ETF that the SEC allowed to trade on a major US exchange. VanEck, another one that launched its first US BTC-linked ETF. That was in November, but that's investing in Bitcoin futures because it was listed on CME. I think VanEck still is trying, and it has had multiple attempts to list a spot ETF, but that hasn't been successful yet because I think listing something that has future component and spot, obviously, I think there's different risks, and there's been some concern cited by the SEC, for example, that there's potential fraud and manipulation of the coin itself. So there are different ETFs that you can consider if that's how you want to get exposure, and of course you can invest in funds and options. So those are some of the alternatives if you want to invest in Bitcoin or crypto, but then you don't want to directly take the risk of investing in the coin itself. So moving on. So regulators in crypto, me being in a compliance role for so many years, it would be remiss for me not to talk about how regulators are viewing the whole crypto market. So I think regulation clearly plays a very big role in the development of digital assets because way back, people would think, oh, actually, the technology is just moving so quick. There's just no way regulators can catch up. Well, yes and no. I think you will see the innovation side of things is developing very quickly, but also the regulators is catching up quite quickly too. So in the US, they're trying to bucket, for example, is something classified as a security or commodity. The other broad bucket really is regulators looking at, or should something be sold to professionals or retail? Because as you guys know, one of the key things that they focus on is investor protection, who will be demonstrating on the street, who will be losing their shoes. So I think that's the key area, bucketing some of these products actually that they're only suited for retail or professional. And also, governments actually and regulators in different parts of the world react differently to how they're safeguarding the industry. So I think they're trying to all get their heads around how I can build something that doesn't really kill the innovation, but I think it's sufficient that we sort of weed the bad actors out of town. So I won't go into deep dive on the regulatory side, but clearly they've implemented different different rules on the AML side, on how you do marketing, how you need to be licensed to be marketing certain things. And lastly, I'll touch on NFTs, because that's also an interesting area that's causing a lot of controversy, I think, in different parts of the world about should NFTs be regulated. So again, it's something that quite hard to bucket, and we can come on to that later on in the session, because right now, no regulator out there said they're regulating NFT, because regulator can't really regulate technology. It needs to be something. It needs to be an asset. If it was a security, they can regulate it. But I think they're still trying to get their hands around, how they want to, issue some investor protection on this particular, they call product. But Hong Kong, they haven't come out to say they're regulating. Singapore came out and said they're not in the short term, but they have clearly sent us a warning statement, for example, to say that retail they think is not appropriate or suitable to be investing in NFTs. And also, I think in Spain, for example, and Singapore as well, I think there are different messaging from the government regulators about doing advertisement, using KOLs, for example, on how you market some of these crypto and NFT projects, like banning them, saying that they're not suitable. So quite an interesting area to watch out for. So moving on. Okay, NFT use cases. So I think, most of you, again, even if you don't trade crypto, because NFT became so retail adopted now, actually, you would have heard of it one way or the other. So, the use cases that I think there's just numerous use cases. The most, recognizable and most common one is art, clearly, because there's been a lot of artwork that's been, to be honest, NFT is just tokenizing the art. So it's been tokenized, it's been sold for like huge amounts, but then you can have a lot of other NFT use cases. So collectibles, things like memberships. There's a restaurant in New York that was selling membership, on restaurants. Genesis, a firm that's come out recently to said that they will be taking NFT as collateral, so they'll be lending against it. But I think you would imagine that it will be on very small notional values. And I mean, the question mark on how exactly do they value that because of the huge volatility. NFT, some of them are used in play to earn in games, and some of them are used as virtual accessories. And I think most commonly is people use it as profile pictures, PFP as they call it. And I think some interesting statistics, in that's been, I think, published with auction houses. It's Sotheby's that they sold, over 150 million sales just for 2021. If you ask them 2 years ago, they probably don't have anybody of any team, anyone really focusing on this area. I think other auction houses like Christie is the same. And the marketplace like OpenSea and LooksRare, were generating 100 million revenue actually in February when the crypto market was taking a bit of pressure with people selling off. So I think, again, those are kind of interesting statistics to see. And also actually NFT and how they're interacting with real world. So people think, well, NFT is something digital, it's a token, something that you have on your phone, but there's a sort of intersection now people building with NFT and real life experience. So for example, a lot of you heard about the Bored Ape Yacht Club, NFT. So they were having Bored Ape Yacht parties out in New York. So people who are NFT holders can actually attend this physical events. And same with, this other project called SatoshiWomen. And they were having gatherings, parties actually in places if you're part of that community. So how that really demonstrates is, in the Web3 world, is all about community and how you build a community, one way is obviously through gathering them through an NFT project. So moving on. Okay, metaverse and community-owned branding. I know I talked a little bit about community-owned branding earlier on, but I think this is just a way to build a community. So not that I'm taking Bored Ape as the only example, but that's kind of a very broad group that you have an initial group of people who went in. Some said that they think the ape looks like them, so they bought into it, and then people were trading, selling in and out of the ape. But then that very quickly formed a group, and then they started investing in other projects, and they started actually going into other things. And they, other people are looking at this group and said, oh, what are they doing? What are they doing as a community? So people are really noticing actually how these like strong communities are working, what they're driving. So again, and I thought another interesting thing to note. And metaverse and NFT, that's again another very interesting topic. Metaverse, again, I can probably spend an hour talking, but probably not today. So people are still grappling with like, what is the metaverse? People usually, when they hear this word, think about Oculus, Sandbox, Decentraland, things that you can build on some virtual world that people can play games on, people can meet. But again, I think a lot of interesting intersection now. For example, if you hold specific NFTs, you can go party in Decentraland. You can wear things, and somebody just built like a fashion street on the metaverse, and you have to have specific tokens or NFT to be accessing it. So these are clearly area that's still developing. I think that's still a huge potential, I think, in development of these market and these intersection. So I think, just watch that space. Okay, moving on. Well, this is not, financial advice, of course, but people always ask, so how exactly do you choose your NFT? So firstly, I think the most important thing is, do you actually like the NFT? People always confuse themselves about why am I investing or buying this NFT? People don't have the confusion if they're buying a physical product. Let's say if I buy a bag, they never think about, well, maybe you do, like, am I going to be able to sell my bag for, X times more? So I think first of all is you need to be clear why you're buying your NFT. So you need to like it. So in the unlikely or unfortunate event that you can't sell it, then you'll be happy owning it. So I think that's kind of really the bottom line. And if you really want to buy an NFT as an investment, then there is a lot more analysis that you would have to do. So I think some of the other sessions I've done, I've talked about, there are tools for sure that you need to go on to that shows you things like trading data, who has it in their wallet, who are the KOLs that's holding it, and who are kind of driving them. So I think this is potentially some of the things that you need to look at, or you have to look at like, who's the community, behind it? Do I really believe in their roadmap? Let's say I have an interest in going into the metaverse, and get some access. If I hold the NFT, they can let me go, buy different mercs, physical products. So I think these are, a lot of analysis you have to look at if you really decide you want to be like heavily trading it. And so I would just leave it at that, because there's just so much more to talk about on NFTs. But again, I think from an investment perspective, you just need to figure out, am I just using it as PFP? I want to hold it, or am I flipping it? Am I trading it? So I think there are clearly different ways that you can think about your NFTs, but just beware. This is clearly a risky asset. I think probably more so than doing trading a Bitcoin, because it's even more illiquid. And I think that there's less, data points that you can use to do analysis. Okay, moving on. So lastly, before we wrap up, key takeaways. So as I talked about before, if you want to get into the crypto or the digital assets, well, think about the different ways you can access. Firstly, do I need a crypto? What kind of crypto do I need? Is it Bitcoin I want to buy? Or if I want to go to the NFT world, like what chain are they on? Is it a Solana? Is it Ethereum? So you need to know what coin you have. And then you would have to take a view about, okay, so how much do I want to allocate? The next two is really interrelated: suitability and risk tolerance. So when you go to a bank, boringly, HSBC or some of the banks, they probably make you sit down, they do a video, they make you fill out a lot of forms, because they want to understand actually what's your risk tolerance. If you lost everything, is that going to be okay? Or are you going to be okay just losing 10, 15%? And what's your appetite? Is the product suitable? So of course, in the crypto world, nobody does any of this for you. So you have to do it yourself. So I think the mindset is similar. So think about how much are you willing to lose, understand actually what's the risk involved in each of them. So that would be what it needs for you to make an assessment. And then lastly, people never believe in this, but like in crypto, and I'm sure actually, there are a lot of other telephone, other scams too, but the probably more common if you deal with virtual assets, crypto or NFT, there always are scams out there. So you get regular messages about, oh, you want a ruffle, you got minted, you got a rare NFT, you got 100 Ethereum, click this link. So anything that sounds too good to be true, it is a scam. There's just no other way to think about it. So better to be safe, to be sorry, is usually what I will say, unless you can verify like the source of who's sending you, these messages, or that person, you've checked it, the system. And usually most, system is set up do not send you direct messages. So just be aware. So I'll probably just leave it there as a key takeaway.
Great, thank you so much, Vivien. And
okay.
I'll let you take a pause because we have some offers for our audience. But thank you so much for that presentation. I certainly found that very useful, and I hope the audience does as well. There's definitely a lot of pitfalls or scams in cryptocurrency and NFTs. So just be careful of that. But it's also a very, very exciting space to be exploring. And as I think a lot of crypto users like to say, you learn, but you also could get paid while learning. So that's a great presentation. Thank you. And before we go into the panel discussion with our guests, I just wanted to announce the exciting offer for everyone who dialed in tonight. So StashAway has a special promotion for SheInvest. If you use the code SheInvest 2022, you can enjoy 2 years of free investing on your next deposit. This is a campaign that we're running across the 5 markets that we're live in. So for each one of you, you can apply it to your next deposits. And again, as I said at the beginning, stay till the end. We'll have some really interesting giveaway as well towards the end. But with that, let me just make an introduction for Charles Dorsey, who is our other guest tonight. So Charles, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and we're very, very excited to have you here. I'll just make a bit of an intro for you, but you have a very, very interesting career. So I'm sure I didn't cover a good part of that. But from what I gather, you were born in France, but you have been in Hong Kong for 15 years. You started your first job in a cyber cafe when you were a student, and that was actually the first time you got in touch or kind of got involved in the internet and started actually working on a P2P file sharing system. And that was actually, I'm guessing it's many, many years ago. And you in 2011, that was when you came across peer-to-peer money, which of course evolved into Bitcoin and also Ethereum. And Charles has been also very instrumental in the development of fintech and crypto industry in Hong Kong while he was serving as an advisor to the government. Today, Charles is the Asia Managing Director at Consensus. And Consensus, as we all know, is the company that also was very instrumental to the founding of Ethereum. And I think Charles is also has a nickname, Mr. MetaMask. And MetaMask today has actually more than 8 million users globally. So it's a very, very popular, I think it's actually the most popular wallet that everyone uses. I'm a user as well. He is also the author of BlockCon, 21 entrepreneurs and financiers leading blockchain in Hong Kong. And it's available on Amazon, I think. And also you're working on a new book as well.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for this great introduction. You've been doing your homework. I'm very, very touched by it. Thank you.
And it's a great honor for us to have you here. I think you and Vivien have been involved in the crypto industry for a long time. So it's very, very helpful to get insights from both of you. So I'll just maybe jump right into the panel questions. So we have a bit of discussion and interaction. We also have a lot of Q&A questions tonight. So hopefully we'll be able to answer most of those questions, if not all. So I guess, just to kick things off, I'd like to start kind of asking about what happened in the past. Do you remember what was your first crypto investment? When was it, and what is it? And what actually drove you? What was the decision making behind taking that investment? Maybe Charles, will start with you.
Well, that's a great question. I have a weird answer for you. The first time I bought a digital asset and crypto was Bitcoin. And the only way I could find to buy Bitcoin actually was on Taobao. So I went on Taobao. I asked my girlfriend, which is my wife now, to buy Bitcoin for me on Taobao, and then I buy 1 Bitcoin. Then it works. I said, okay, give me a little bit more, give me a little bit more, and that's the way I bought my first Bitcoin.
Wow.
So that's a great story, but let me finish my story. It's not finished. And within a few months, I realized Bitcoin was really hyper volatile. And I realized, oh, maybe I made a mistake. Why did I buy this thing? The price goes up by 20% before breakfast and goes down by 40% by lunchtime. And it's just a terrible idea. So my even worst idea was to sell everything the same year. So here is my story.
I mean, that's a great story. And I'm sure, I don't know if there's many people who bought like Bitcoin from Taobao. Actually, this is the first time I ever heard like somebody actually.
I don't think it's possible anymore. At the time, no one really understood what it was. And
exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm sure like actually most of us who have invested in Bitcoin have gone through that roller coaster, like kind of up 200% and down like 80% sort of experience. But it's a very, very interesting story. Vivien, how about you?
Mine is super boring. So I got mine in 2019. I bought 2 OTC, and because initially my friend said, well, you have to show it in some shop in Wan Chai, but you have to go up some stairs and they don't really have lights. So that freaked me out. So I said, yeah, maybe I think I'll probably find some other ways to do it. So I just bought it through an OTC desk actually in 2019. So I only bought 2 initially, and it was a long time till I bought the next 2, but you probably won't be surprised given actually how risk-averse I am. So go slow and go easy. And I need to figure out actually if I can handle it, if I would lose it, and how to do my cold wallet. So I had to do all of that before I was comfortable buying the next 2.
Yeah, well, I mean, 2019, that was a pretty good price, I guess. So I'll share a bit of my experience as well. So I first bought crypto, Bitcoin specifically, in 2017. That was the peak of the last bull market, and I mean, just people around me started talking about Bitcoin kind of early 2017 while it was running up to 10K. And I'm also very conservative, so I was trying to do research and see, I mean, what are the regulated ways to kind of get Bitcoin. I couldn't find any. Eventually, I actually found one provider, Gemini, which is registered with the, I guess, New York State government. So then I was like, okay, this feels safer. But still, I mean, given the asset volatility, I was thinking, okay, I'll just put in a little bit of money. I thought, like, the way I thought about it was really just my cow money. So like things that I could afford to lose. And of course, like after I put it in, like Bitcoin was was around, I guess, 10K for a while, and it started to plunge, and I didn't look at it again for quite some time. And I think it was also around like 2019, 2020, when I started like really looking at it and digging into technology a bit more in detail, and then like really being, I guess, like just fascinated by the underlying technology and everything that you can do. Together, I guess, with Ethereum more developed, there's actually more use cases for cryptocurrency as a whole. So, I mean, that leads me to the second question, which is fast forward to today. How are you thinking about, I guess, cryptocurrencies or like just kind of digital asset management, digital asset investment right now? I assume it's different from when you first started, but yeah. Maybe Charles, you can share some of your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it started with a mother of all blockchain, Bitcoin, and then from there, a new era started in 2015 with Ethereum, which brought the concept of smart contracts. So this kind of contract and business logic you could essentially program on blockchain and get it deployed globally in no time. So today you've got thousands of different digital assets, but I think the people approaching the asset class are also very different. In the early days, it was people which were very curious, Some people were anarchists, some people were technologists, some people were curious like me, thinking, I understand how to share peer-to-peer files, and why not look at how to share money peer-to-peer. But today you've got a very large variety of investors and market participants. You've got big hedge funds, you've got big enterprises taking Bitcoin and Ethereum as part of their treasuries. You've got new investors coming into the space via NFTs. You've got a lot of technologists and developers using MetaMask, for example, to sign and design and be part of some smart contract activities. And the governments are starting to develop as well central bank digital currencies. So we are starting to see digital assets which are, I will say, old school digital asset and purely crypto. But we start to see also digital assets which are coming regulated, digital assets coming for an art audience. So the diversity of people in the space is really energizing and very encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I mean, with more and more people participating and more projects coming out every day, it's sometimes it's very, very hard to keep up with what's happening as well. There's so much.
Today, to give you some data points, today I think some research estimates that there is about 200 million people in the world which have been already kind of investing or spending a little bit of crypto. In the world of Ethereum, we are at more than 170 million Ethereum addresses today. So it gives you a sense of the expansion of the space. And with the new use cases, what we are seeing before our eyes is really the birth of the Internet 3 or Web 3, the third generation of Internet.
Yes.
Which is really, I would say, sitting on the top of the blockchain technology.
Yes, absolutely. And I think I read some stats as well on kind of crypto penetration in the US. I think 1 out of 10 people in the US have actually invested in some form of shape in digital currencies. So it's definitely being, I guess, a asset class that's capturing a lot of mind share right now. Vivien, what about you? How have you evolved in your crypto journey?
I don't know if I've evolved that much. I mean,
risk averse is good.
I'm so very risk averse. No, I don't think fundamentally I looked at it any differently in terms of allocation. Maybe I'll allocate a bit more now. And also it has to do with the fact that, as I talked about earlier, let's say, if I have $100, then do I put $5, $10, into crypto? And then if I do, then in the past, people just think about, it's just Bitcoin, but now there's Ethereum, the use case of Ethereum. And the other thing, that's, I think, is a very good development now, is because a lot of banks, financial institutions, there's a lot more information and materials. There are reports on, on the metaverse, on if you want to buy land, they've got NFT statistics. So there's a lot more reference data point now that you can look at if you wanted to. And then, things like NFT, everybody's talking like on the street. I think most people still don't understand actually, maybe how it works, but at least there's a community and people and data points that you can refer to, and you can be part of groups and that, talks about this thing and educate you about these things. So I think that's definitely a great development.
Yeah, and I guess I really could resonate with the point about thinking crypto allocation as one of the asset classes that you should allocate. So within a very traditional portfolio, for example, when we invest in stocks, we invest in bonds. So part of that portfolio should also consider digital assets as well. And that's certainly, I guess, how myself have evolved. So when I first started, I said it was Macau money. Now, like that, I've done a lot more research and really looked at the, I guess, for example, statistics compared to traditional investments, returns, risk, etc. It's actually part of my own personal asset allocation portfolio as well. So with that, I guess also Charles, I'd like to ask you a question. I see a very, very nice MetaMask outfit that you have. I wish I have that too.
Are we all going to get one, Charles?
This is only for the crew. This is only for the crew.
One on one.
Yeah, but maybe can you share a bit of your journey of, I guess MetaMask has become, I guess, the symbol or like one of the icons of crypto, Web3, like Ethereum, etc. Even, I mean, right now you guys have cross-chain as well. So can you just kind of talk about a bit about your journey of going from like a very, very niche product to now like so many people are using it? How did that happen?
So MetaMask was created in 2015, 2016 by one project within Consensus. So Consensus at the time was one of the very early engineering company building with many others in the community the Ethereum ecosystem. So that was the birth of smart contracts. And to essentially to enable this ecosystem of developers and users to grow at the pace they wanted to grow, the ecosystem was lacking some basic tools such as software to design and program smart contract, but also a crypto wallet where you could hold your private keys, you could hold also your digital assets. So that's the story of MetaMask. It was built initially for developers so they can sign transactions on the Ethereum network. And over the years, we added at Consensus more and more features, more and more interactions with different type of networks. And there was a moment where the growth has been really kind of boosting very massively. And this happened last summer. So last summer in July 2021, in July 2020, there was about 700,000 users of MetaMask globally. And 12 months later, July 2021, there was 7 million users of MetaMask. And there was no specific budget of marketing or advertising. It was just suddenly the growth went totally hockey and there was some new use case such as DeFi and NFTs being very, very successful on the market with many different apps getting more and more users. And one of the gateway to go to access this app is really MetaMask. It's available on mobile phone, it's available on your desktop, and it gives you access to all these virtual space of virtual assets as well as metaverse and NFTs. So we've seen really a growth which has been really hockey, and it's very fascinating to see that there is so many use cases and it becomes some kind of public good. Today, MetaMask is a free software, and no one pays for MetaMask, and it's essentially a companion for many millions of users today, and the growth keep being very massive every week. So expect in the coming weeks additional announcement about the company and additional numbers illustrating the growth of MetaMask. But beyond the growth of this single product, think of the growth of the space in general, and that's really energizing.
Yeah, no, looking forward to that exciting announcement. And I mean, what's amazing is that I've never seen like one single advertisement for MetaMask.
Yeah, me neither. Like it's quite fascinating. Yes.
It's really part of the ecosystem. It's built for developers, built for users. We launched a few months ago a MetaMask version with a blue color. So you can see I've got the orange MetaMask for retail users like you and me, and there is also a blue MetaMask on my right, which is a MetaMask for institutionals. So when you are an hedge fund, when you are a bank, or when you are a very large investor, you want to use MetaMask, but with features which are really dedicated to professionals. So this version has been launched a few weeks ago, and we are launching in the coming weeks a new version of MetaMask. This one will be dedicated to developers for them to enable additional apps they could build on the top of MetaMask. So it's really an ecosystem growing before our eyes, and a lot of traction and energy, and millions of users.
Yeah, very, very, very exciting. So, I mean, on the one hand, we have a lot of innovations going on, like lots of developers developing for like on blockchain for like different applications. On the other hand, we have regulations, which is always like a very, very, I guess.
That's a question for you, Vivien.
Exactly. Like,
it's coming.
So we have a lot of questions from the audience as well. Like, I mean, how should we think about regulation, Vivien? In Asia, what is the kind of landscape? I mean, we have some questions about, is crypto going to be banned? Hong Kong, like how does Hong Kong compare to Singapore in terms of like the progress that we make? So from your perspective, like how do you think about regulation and crypto?
I know, me personally, I feel that I'm caught on crossroad because I clearly have, big believer in all the digital asset space. So we have one crew with people that I'm with that Stephanie knows them, the degens, actually that is degenerating every day, like trading without doing research, belief in decentralization, no banking and whatnot. I think regulation is soul destroying. I think that's the term that they usually use. But then of course, actually, I think we are still living in a world where most things are regulated. So I think it's a balance between the two. I think I talked about it a bit earlier about regulations, about how worldwide regulators are reacting to it. I personally felt that they have moved fairly quickly. Of course, actually, it's going to be hard. Innovation is just it happens per minute, and regulators they're not technology people, so they're trying to get their hands around as fast as they can. I think they have to focus on the bigger risk versus trying to regulate everything, because that doesn't really work. So I think they're just looking at the big headlines, as in, okay, well, if I need to protect one subset, who's that? And also, like, which in different countries, again, as I talked about, actually there's some countries that are more broadly adopting it. So they probably felt that this is more of a retail play. People actually understand it more, so less regulation needed, or at least the framework doesn't need to be that robust. And again, I think most of the crypto setup, some are regulated, but most are in unregulated jurisdiction. Some of them are in sort of regulations that they just felt they might have more flexibility. So there's really a mixed bag. Hong Kong and Singapore is an interesting one. I think, well, I mean, it's not just in crypto. I think in many aspects, I think around Asia, it's just huge competition. So Hong Kong, regulates very actively. As I mentioned before, they're pushing out a lot of consultation, one on stablecoin and crypto assets. I think they put up a framework very recently on virtual assets. If you're provided, how going forward, if you're licensed or not, like how to provide the different type of services and the like. So I mean, they are learning as we do, but I feel they're receptive. They're forming special team. They want to recruit more people to learn. I think Singapore, actually, I think there's a huge influx of people going to Singapore, again, for different reasons. Probably, some felt that maybe more room to travel out of Singapore, easier. And then also, I think talent-wise, maybe easier, actually, people coming into Singapore, actually from Southeast Asia. So, I mean, I think there are pros and cons. And China headlines, that's always going to be there, because China takes a stand about what they want to do onshore. Then Hong Kong always has a shadow about, okay, is it being controlled by China? Is it not? So far, I think Hong Kong has been trying to prove that it's independent and it has its own policy. Of course, directionally, you have to take note of different things. So very fast moving. I think there'll be more coming out, particularly, I think, on how retail has been dealt with in Hong Kong. So yeah, watch that space.
Yeah, so I think, regulators are trying to protect the investors. And I guess as individual investors, we should do our best to protect ourselves as well. And that goes into the next set of questions, which is about kind of security, custody. How do you ensure that you're safe in this world? Maybe some tips for our users. So maybe I'll kickstart. So
use MetaMask.
Yeah, exactly. So there's like, I guess from my understanding, there's basically two camps, right? So there's MetaMask, which is part of DeFi, right? Decentralized finance. Which is kind of what crypto originally set out to do. But then, it requires like the user to keep track of your own passwords. There's no, if you lost it, if you typed in the wrong wallet address, your crypto gets sent to outer space and you can't retrieve it. So there's another way to get access, which is through CeFi, which is centralized exchanges. So names like Binance, Gemini, FTX, etc. These are centralized platforms. Of course, it's not decentralized, so you don't have full control of your kind of crypto assets. But then there's the customer service who will answer your questions if you need to. So I guess there's two different routes depending on the user's kind of level of comfort or sophistication. There are different choices. So maybe Charles, since you're the Mr. MetaMask, is there some tips for our users to stay safe on MetaMask?
Never share your password or your seed phrase with anyone. Remember, it's a wallet. So a wallet is not supposed to contain too much money. this wallet you put in your pocket and walk in the street and go for lunch or go for a little bit of shopping. You're not going to put your life saving in a wallet. You're going to use different type of infrastructure. So in the fiat world, you will keep your money in the bank, and from time to time, twice a week, you will go to an ATM and get some cash out and get this cash into your wallet. So if you lose your wallet, you only lose a small amount. So think of MetaMask as a wallet, which will help you to interact with different things, acquire different digital assets, but it's not supposed to keep a very large amount of value. So if you want to store the value in outside of your MetaMask wallet, you can choose to transfer the asset to an exchange, a centralized exchange, like the brands you mentioned, or you can start to use what we call the hardware wallet. So it's some kind of little key ring with a USB cable, and essentially to keep offline and prevent hackers and other viruses to steal your assets. So give yourself some time to learn, test yourself. Maybe if you want to recover your password, why don't you try to recover your password with only a small amount of asset into your wallet, and be a little bit how to say, just questions many things. If you start to receive email, if people make you promises, just be aware that there is not only nice people on the internet, and some of them wants your digital asset badly, so they will find always some very nice stories and emails and SMS. So be suspicious a little bit by default rather than sorry later.
Yeah, I think that, the beauty of DeFi is that, every transaction is actually recorded on the public blockchain. So like nobody can actually change that or kind of tamper with that. But the key, the private key is the access to everything. So things like MetaMask, for example, or hardware wallets, these are just, security devices to help you to safeguard the private key. So, it's super important to keep it just very, very safe.
Yeah, I would just add, I think Charles covered a lot of it, but I think just add maybe a couple of things. It's some people actually set up just separate emails, for the exchanges. So because if you use one email for everything, then if you get hacked on one thing, then everything, then you kind of lose control. So that's one way. Other people would just keep things on different, set up maybe different exchanges. They divvy up their assets, I think, and do it on different ways. So I think they're clearly different ways that you can segregate and divvy, and just make sure actually you don't have everything actually under one pot. I think it's actually
one tip I have for everyone, because I'm pretty bad with
passwords
and everything, right? So whenever I make a transfer, I always make a small transfer first to make sure that I'm sending to the right address, to make sure that everything works before I initiate the real transfer. So it's another way to protect yourself, because if the transfer gets lost, you can't call a customer service to revert it. So just doing these help to protect yourself.
Maybe to complement also, whenever you have the chance to activate what we call the 2FA, two-factor authentications, where when you have this kind of short time codes, you can incorporate into your digital services. Do it. If you haven't started to use a password manager, I think it's a good idea. So a password manager will help you to manage very complex and very hard to crack passwords for different services, to make sure you don't use the same password for multiple services. So you only keep in mind and you only remember one very hard password, and then the password manager will help you to get a solid password for many different services you're using. So a password manager and activating 2FA security codes, I think, is a really good start for good sleep and safety.
Yes. So we're running past our official time, but I'm sure everyone would love to listen more from Vivien and Charles. So maybe we'll extend the session a little bit till 8:30. So our next kind of group of cluster of questions or discussion points are around NFT. So I'm just curious, do you both invest in NFTs? I know Vivien does. And if you think about your favorite project or projects, which ones are they? Doesn't necessarily have to be the ones that make you the most money, but maybe most. Maybe Vivien,
I'm going to answer it in a very diplomatic way. I like them differently for different reasons. Because I think as I went back for some, I just bought because I think the art is cute. Like, you know, I actually like the, you know, like as a PFP, you know, the ones I mentioned early on in the session, like World of Women, because I think I like what they do, because, you know, that project, they are trying to expose different female artists every month. You know, the partnership they form, they have a book club, they have a dedicated like pool of assets. I think, you know, lately they actually invested something that has to do with climate change. So I think it's just the whole philosophy, I think, of the founder and the team, because that's usually when I pick projects, I have to relate to actually what they're doing and I believe in it. So I think that's kind of one camp. And then otherwise, actually, yeah, I mean, I think art is very subjective. So, you know, people like different things. Some like generative art. Some people like artists that are more famous, that are more well known, because they believe that it should just be like buying physical art, that you think that in time actually this will go up because it has value and because the artist is somebody who's got value. So yeah, I think I don't actually look at it that differently from how I invest in other different you know, physical art. And so, but it's just a different way of it's a token, it's a digitized way. And also the thing I like about NFT is you can do like a digital gallery, for example. You can do it just on your computer, you can do it on the metaverse, you can show all the things that you have without people going to visit you. So that's a beauty in my view.
Yeah, I guess that's especially important in the I guess
in the current in the current environment.
We can all meet in a metaverse.
Yes.
To be honest, Stephanie, I've been buying a couple of NFTs only, just more to show support to some projects here and there. It's not really resonating with me, and I think that's perfectly fine. Some people will be big fans of the metaverse and have limited appetite for cryptocurrencies. Some others will be in the technology without really a strong attraction for the asset itself. So I think it's I was not in arts before NFTs, and NFTs have not convert me to an art fan yet. So let's see how things are going. But I'm definitely into the world of digital assets, involved in many different ways, but not through NFTs.
Yeah, I mean, I'll share the project that I like the most, but I didn't buy. BAYC, Bored Ape Yacht Club. I looked at the project a few months ago and I thought it was like too expensive, so I didn't buy it. And then a few months later, I basically, I think, went up like 2 times in prices. Now it's just like way too expensive as well. But I mean, jokes aside, I also buy another like kind of projects that I find interesting. For example, there's one project that I really like, which is kind of done by a gallery, a very traditional gallery, Saatchi Gallery. So they have this Van Gogh project. I'm a big fan of Van Gogh as well. And they gather different artists to have different interpretations of Van Gogh's portrait. So yeah, it's as Vivien said, like at the end of the day, it comes down to your personal kind of preference for the arts, and then also some of the PFP profile picture NFTs actually represent a membership token. So you need to be able to identify with the community to kind of enjoy the benefit the NFT brings.
Maybe Stephanie, just to tell you, I think I am on the market for music NFTs. Because I think there will be, and there is not so many yet, and I think it's another wave of iterations of the technology. But I'm very excited about being able to buy music and essentially getting most of the revenue to the artist and not to the distribution systems and the record companies and the distributors here and there. So really kind of flipping around the business model of music to make sure that the artists are the first beneficiaries and not the infrastructure around them. So very early days for music NFTs, but I think they are coming very, very soon, and they will bring a new experience, and I think they're going to help for much richer and diverse music overall. So that's the kind of NFTs I'm after. It's not only JPEGs. I think JPEGs are the first things which we see, but there will be many more NFTs coming in different shape and forms, and that's an exciting space.
Yeah, definitely agree. And that's I mean, there are kind of I guess NFTs linked to real life objects as well. That is very exciting, and I definitely agree with you. I think one of the beauty of the NFT is that the artist, the creator of the NFT, actually gets to enjoy royalty even like after multiple rounds of secondary trading, which is impossible without the use of the NFT technology. So I guess we have a few minutes left, but actually one question that I think a lot of investors, a lot of audience here would like to ask is if they'd like to learn more, if they'd like to kind of just explore more about cryptocurrencies or NFTs or anything on the blockchain, what are some of the like go-to resources that you both would recommend for our audience tonight?
Follow SatoshiWomen.
All right, what is this?
No, actually, well, if you want to learn elementary, well, you know, because I think we advocate, as I mentioned before, actually for crypto literacy, but from women from all walks. But we are inclusive, so I think if you're male, we welcome you too. But we are doing a very basic question, like 101 sessions, because we didn't want it to get too technical. Of course, there are more technical ones, but and then our community, we take a lot of feedback. So we do sessions on coins, you know, on metaverse, on NFT. So I think that's clearly one way. I think that there's just a huge amount. I mean, StashAway does a lot too. Like you guys are doing a lot on the education side. So I think, I'm sure Charles, actually consensus side, actually you guys do a lot of education, and I see you on panels all the time. So, you know, that those are already free resources actually that people can just tap on to. And there's like, seriously, right now, I think monthly, every month, they're either big conferences actually organized by different company, whether it's FinTech Association, you know, whether it's Blockchain Association, you know, that token 2049. If you just go on LinkedIn, on Google, and type the month and the year, I'm sure thing just comes out, and there's just so much free resources right now. I think that's probably the easiest way, but I know it's probably a bit overwhelming amount of resources. So maybe Stephanie and Charles have a better like idea or suggestions about how people can learn.
The thing is, the topic is a massive rabbit hole. The more you dive, the more you realize there is more to learn. And most of the time, people just go and learn more, and it looks like there is no end. So you want to choose, what do you want to learn? Do you want to learn about the asset and how to possibly invest in this space? You want to learn about the technology? I think probably starting with understanding the technology will give you a better understanding of the asset. This is your ultimate goal for your journey. At Consensus, we have the Consensus Academy, where there is a lot of free classes and free courses where you can get a few weeks of training if you want to be just get a general understanding of the space, or getting more some kind of engineer views of the technology. But as Vivien said, there is plenty. So learn and think of it as the new generation of internet, not only as funny things to buy and sell and possibly make money. It's really a very big paradigm shift in terms of infrastructure for our society today.
Yeah, and I think I definitely agree. There's so much going on. It's very hard to keep track. But maybe I pick one area that you are specifically interested in. NFT is a great place to start. I think it's easier to understand than maybe a lot of DeFi protocols, which requires a lot more technical knowledge. But also, I mean, I think echoing back to some of the earlier comments we had at the beginning of the session is important. I guess what makes it fun is also to get a group of people together who share the same interest. And then just, I mean, have that community ping around ideas. I think that's kind of how I learned about like many things that are happening in crypto as well. So have that kind of like support group. If you like get friends involved, like grab friends and come to webinars, educational sessions, and try things out. I think throughout the journey, we're all going to fail at some point in terms of like making bad investments or making mistakes. But it's part of that journey. Same for investment. Like it's okay to lose money as long as you're not losing, I guess, a significant amount. So controlling your risk is very important. I guess, yeah, with that, unfortunately, I mean, we have a lot of questions tonight. I think like we have some fantastic guests here, so everyone would like to ask more questions, but we're also running out of time, and we realize that it's already running past 8:30. So with that, I'll just again share the I guess the offer that we have tonight, and also announce the special offer. So as a reminder, tonight we have a special code for our investors who put in fresh new deposits. So use the code SheInvest 2022 to enjoy 2 years of free investment management fee. And then also tune in next week. We have also on a Tuesday, 7 p.m. Investing in Female Leaders. We have a fantastic panel and also moderated by our very own Chief Operating Officer, Nandini. Last but not least, we are very, very happy that Charles has offered some free books for us. So for audience tonight who sign up, I guess to sign up, the first 10 audience that sign up will have a free book from Charles to you with a lot of love. So with that, I guess yeah. Well, I mean, we had a fantastic session again, but I'm sure we all learned a lot. And thank you so much again. Thanks, Charles, and thanks, Vivien, and thanks everyone for joining us tonight. We'll see you again next week.